Only about 2% of you guys are subscribed to the channel. So I really hope you guys would hit that subscribe button so we can get to 1K subscribers by the end of this weekend. And as soon as we can, so we can get this channel out the mud and get this out on the algorithm so we can be in high standing for the 2024 election year. Hello everyone, welcome back to On Point Politics. Before we get started, please hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel and share this video with a friend so we can get this channel out on the algorithm. Again, very appreciative of all the support that we're getting. Literally gained like 350, 400 subscribers in like a day because of the last video that we did of Donald Trump's best case scenario. Today, I'm actually going to be going over Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s best case scenario in a 2024 scenario. And I'm going to be going over the logistics of this. So number one, he would consistently poll in like the low teens, mid 20s. I'm assuming that if RFK is in a contentious third way race with Trump, he will never poll ahead of them, but I feel like he would outperform polling data. Instead of Trump outperforming the polling data, I think RFK would outperform the polling data by a pretty substantial amount. I believe that not only that, but I also think that in this scenario, RFK would have pretty much debated Donald Trump and Biden. And in my opinion, I think if he does debate them and he does get on that stage, which he has qualified for, by the way, his polling average is high enough for him to qualify for the debate. If he does debate Trump and Biden, he effectively would smoke him in the debate. He would kill both Trump and Biden in a presidential debate, which would boost his campaign quite a bit. So I am going to be going over a kind of presidential election prediction where he does get to 270 electoral votes, because what happens is if the nominee or if any candidate does not get above 270, they send it to the House, and more than likely RFK would not get voted in through the House of Representatives. It probably wouldn't happen. Donald Trump would probably get elected through the House of Representatives, or even Biden, depending on how big the size of the lead of the House is at that point. But I'm going to start, laying out a couple of states. This is assuming that this is his best case scenario, basically. This is assuming he got on the debate stage, his polling is consistently high, he's doing many rallies, he's campaigning consistently, he's probably starting to lead Trump and Biden in some of the swing states. And so this is what I think he'd probably get in that day. So I feel like Idaho, Wyoming, North Dakota, South Carolina, excuse me, North Dakota, South Dakota would still be safe far. Oklahoma would be safe far. I think Arkansas would be safe far, as well as Tennessee and West Virginia. And that's about it. For the safe Joe Biden states, I think he would probably win Vermont, Massachusetts, Maryland, and DC by safe margins. And that's it. That's literally it. For RFK, I'm suspecting that he would basically, again, this is his absolute best case scenario. I'd expect him to win Alaska by a pretty substantial amount. I think he'd win it over by 15 points in this case. I think he'd basically win pretty much all of Maine. He would basically win all of Maine pretty much. I mean, maybe not so much the first district because it is a very favorable Biden district, but I do think he would probably win it in the scenario. This is, by the way, assuming that the popular vote is tied. So, like, they're basically in a perfect three-way race. Like, each candidate gets around 33% of the popular vote. This is basically what I'm basing this off of. If you look here, he would probably win Colorado by a few points against Biden. It would be kind of a two-way race between him and Biden. And so he would probably win it by about 5 or 6 points in this case. I think he'd win California, in my opinion. I think he'd win California. He'd win Washington in this hypothetical scenario. I think he would win the state of Washington by a couple of points. I think he does win Oregon in this scenario as well. I think he does win it by 2 or 3 points. So he's already at 91 electoral votes. And I think Donald Trump would still win Kentucky. He'd win Indiana. He'd win Mississippi by a couple of points. He'd still get Alabama by a good amount. Louisiana, I'm going to leave it blank. And I think he'd still get the Nebraska at large. I think he'd get that third district as well. However, I think that second district would basically be gone, and the first district would pretty much become competitive for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. If you look at a couple of states here, I think that Biden probably still wins Delaware. I think he also does win Connecticut and Rhode Island by pretty close margins. And actually, we could probably leave Rhode Island as a toss up, in my personal opinion. Donald Trump, in this scenario, I think he does win Louisiana by just like a point and a half. It's really, really close, but he barely wins it. I think in Illinois, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. comes out on top. I think he would win New York in this case. I think that he would also, not only that, I actually think Donald Trump would probably still keep Ohio and Iowa, because what would happen is in this scenario, Trump's disbursement of votes would still kind of work out well for him. So even though a lot of these rural areas would suck up, his base would maintain pretty well in Ohio and Iowa. I do think that Montana would be pretty close. I think it would get really, really competitive. Another state that I think that our RFK would probably beat Trump in is Utah. I think he wouldn't really have a problem there. And I think in terms of Nevada, I think Nevada's a state that he'd win over 15 points. I think he'd win Arizona by over 15 points. He'd win, I think, Wisconsin by 10 points. He probably wins Michigan by quite a bit. He wins Pennsylvania by a bit. I think he wins Georgia by a substantial amount. And he also would pick up North Carolina. However, I do think Virginia would still stay with Biden, in my personal opinion. I do think that the state of Missouri would barely stay with Trump, but I do think Kansas would be a flip. I think South Carolina would be a really close state, but I think it would flip. I think Hawaii would be a state that would flip, and I also think Minnesota would be. So he's already at 267 electoral votes. I also think Trump would barely hold on to that first district in Nebraska, and I think that RFK would have a good time winning in New Hampshire, which would get him to 271 electoral college votes. And at this point, Biden's only getting like 50 electoral votes. Like it's a really close race. I think in Virginia, Trump and RFK split the vote in Virginia as the non-establishmentarian vote, and I think Biden would just ever so slightly win the state. I actually think that New Mexico would be a lean margin, and I think that in this scenario, I think Florida would still go to Trump. I think Trump would barely win Florida, and I think Texas would like barely go to RFK. So he'd win Texas, and then New Jersey would ever so slightly stay with Biden. Or actually, no, 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 I'm sorry. It's the other way around. I think New Jersey would stay or would barely go to RFK, and I think Rhode Island would be that state to barely stay with Joe Biden. So effectively, RFK would basically become the de facto Democratic nominee and just kind of take away some votes from Trump as well, kind of expand the map. This is a realistic scenario for RFK to get a landslide victory while each candidate has about 33% of the vote. And so this is kind of my best case scenario for RFK. Again, it's a tied popular vote. He got on the debate stage for all the debates, and he's consistently polling in the low 20s by election day. So this is what I see happening if that is the case. So if you guys did like the video, please like the video down below, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with a friend so we can get it out on the algorithm. And I hope you guys have a good rest of your day. On Point Politics, signing out.